Hello everyone, I welcome you all to this video, and this video is about bilingualism, and as you know about my passion about foreign languages, especially English. I thought I should be speaking someone who is perfectly bilingual, I mean the equal proficiency in both the languages, and I am a journalist at the Dhaka Tribune, and I started working here in March this year, and after 2 months after working here, this girl came in our office at the news section from the magazine section and started working here. And when she started speaking in English, and I thought, well, maybe someone has come from America or Britain, Australia, and she's speaking here, and I couldn't understand all of her words, so I thought maybe I should speak to her to know how did she become so good and so proficient in English. And as I spoke to her, as I asked her about her secrets, she told me about how she really did become so proficient in English. And here we welcome Rohini to this video. Hi. Thank you to give me some time to record this video. So first thing I would like to know, and of course the viewers want to know about a brief introduction about you, about yourself, and about what you do. A brief introduction.
Okay, I'm Rohini, and I do have to go into ages, or okay? No. So I'm currently working as a revised sub-editor at Dhaka Tribune, and I'm also teaching at Northern University. On the side, I'm writing a story for an animation film, which hopefully will become the first animated film to come out of Bangladesh. That's me. Those are my interests, because I love reading, writing, and obviously stories. So, yeah.
That's all about you. Okay, a brief introduction. Okay, so now I want to come to the language part. As I knew from you that your family played a crucial role, a vital role in how you became so proficient in both the languages. So tell us about your family. I mean, how did you grow up in your family, and how did your parents helped you to become so proficient in English, and of course in Bangla?
Yeah. So my mom she has an MA in English, so she did both her undergraduate and her postgraduate in English. So that was always a big influence. And my dad, he lived in America for 18 years, and so he speaks both English and Bangla. And both of my parents actually lived in Bangladesh during the independence. So for both of them, Urdu also became a language that they had to learn and speak in, because
she was in Pakistan.
Yeah, pre-independence. When my mom grew up in Karachi, so she learned Urdu. She did her HSC and stuff in Urdu. So my growing up, I experienced 3 languages simultaneously. We were in Bangladesh, so Bangla. My parents are both completely comfortable speaking and writing in English, so there was that, and obviously my mother's favorite Urdu. So yeah, I grew up with kind of 3 languages floating around. When I went to school, they started teaching us both Bangla and English. My Bangla used to be better than my English, but then, and the teachers at my preschool, they thought that I wouldn't ever be able to speak English. They called my mother and they told her that I wouldn't be able to speak in English, and she took me back home and decided her daughter would speak in English. So she crammed me. She gave me books. My dad played a huge role. He used to make me watch CNN and BBC News. I'd read the newspaper with him. And every time I didn't understand a word, he would tell me to look it up in the dictionary, or, sometimes he'd give me the meanings. Mostly the dictionary. He wanted us to learn on our own. Yeah, so they crammed me, and I started leaning towards English a lot more, and I became more and more fluent in English, and I took on the proper pronunciations and everything. And because we were in and out of Bangladesh, I also continued to learn Bangla.
Okay. So Bangla was your mother tongue, and English you did acquire from your parents because they were extensively using the language, and that's how you became so proficient in both the languages. Okay. So tell me, you are in the US. You lived there for a long time, and how did that American society help you to become, the proficiency, to develop your proficiency? Because all the people around you are obviously speaking English.
Right.
So how did you find that?
Well, I mean, for me, I was already comfortable using English, so it wasn't that hard. But when you're living in an environment where 24/7 you're speaking just the one language. I was living in Saratoga Springs, which is upstate New York. It's not a very mixed society. Like if I was living in New York City, I would experience Spanish Harlem or the Bronx or Brooklyn.
Because the area is so diverse.
Right, there are diverse cultures, so there are other languages floating around there. In Saratoga, there was only, predominantly white people.
Okay.
So they would speak English, and I had to communicate with them. And I think it helped a lot in terms of pronunciation and better usage of words. It made me more flexible. It made me more proficient.
I see. So you are in Bangladesh and you are already proficient, or you are already so good in English. And when you went to the US, it just helped you to grow better. Okay. So tell me about this. When you are speaking English, so do you always, the people whose English is whose second language, the people are always, trying to translate. I mean, the Bangladeshis, most of the Bangladeshis, the way they teach English in our schools and in our education institutions, they want us to translate the language. So do you think it is actually possible to become a bilingual person if you are always trying to, or you are always required to translate what you are trying to say in your mind? So if that is not the right way, so from your experience, as you are a completely bilingual person, so what do you think is the best way to develop bilingual proficiency?
If you have to, like in this conversation, let's say we are speaking to one another, you can't ask me a question in Bangla and then spend 5 minutes waiting for me to figure out the answer. You know what I mean? Like that's an awkward conversation. So to have this level of fluidity in our conversation, we need to be able to unconsciously make those translations as we go along.
So how does this the unconscious translation happen?
I guess that's where learning comes in, like how you learn the language. If you are taught to, let's say in Bangladesh, they do this a lot, that you memorize things and you memorize words and meanings and you try to use that, that's not a good way to learn at all for a language. Like you need to learn through practice, you need to be able to speak to people, you need to have teachers who can speak the language fluently, you need to be able to do speaking exercises and reading exercises, maybe listen to people's reading out passages that teaches you pronunciation and stuff like that. To be able to speak to one another in terms of the person that you're speaking to needs to also be fluent in the language and stuff like that. So I think that if you want to be bilingual, you need to for Bangladesh, you need to completely change how people learn languages.
Exactly. So I was thinking also about that. So what's your suggestion? I mean, you have observed the present state of Bangladesh, how the teachers are teaching us the English, and you have also observed it how they're doing it in the US. So when you are making a comparison, so how do you think our education system should be reformed, or how can we introduce changes to this education system so that students can become actually bilingual?
It's great that we do start learning English in Bangladesh from the primary years
from an
of
early
education.
age.
But at the same time, I think that the idea of education in America is you can only learn when you can be interested in what you're
so when I'm enjoying it, I'm learning.
If you're enjoying it, you're learning. So there's in preschool in America, they have what they call play school. So you're playing with
The
each other
materials.
with blocks or stuff like with alphabets and stuff, and you learn that way. It's a lot of fun. It engages the mind.
It's like a game.
It's a game, and you learn it. As long as you're interested in what you're doing, you will learn. It's kind of a human tendency. It's true. Let's say, do you play any sports?
No, I don't play any sports, but I just watch them on the
Okay,
TV.
well, I play football, soccer.
I see.
And nobody took me in hand and taught me how to play the game.
So you automatically are
I
naturally.
used to watch the game on TV with my brother and my dad. And then when my brother wanted to play, we got a football, we kicked it around. We watched more videos, we loved the game, we kept kicking the ball around, and we learned how to play. You know, and therein lies the nature of learning. Like when you're interested in something, you will learn.
Okay, so you are saying that in Bangladesh the teachers are not so much proficient in making it enjoyable.
They're not.
That's the
Right,
problem.
you know, like-
and they don't themselves also kind of speak English completely fluently.
They can't.
That's the
If
problem.
you're given a list of words and you're told learn the meanings of these words,
But don't use them in your real life.
you know, like who cares? I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like when I went to school, I'll tell you this frankly, I think I pretty much failed grammar in English. I was never good at English grammar. Even today, like if someone goes, "What's an intransitive verb?" I'll have to look it up on Google or something. I have no idea.
Seriously?
Yeah, because
Oh
to
my
me
God.
it's like, what does it matter? These definitions and things.
But you know,
I know how to use them.
exactly.
I know how a sentence needs to be structured, and I can structure a sentence perfectly. I can do that because I have learned through practice, by doing, as opposed to reading and memorizing.
I see. So actually you learn it in a practical way, but how we are teaching our students, the teachers are teaching our students, is more of theoretical approach, and that doesn't actually help students to
Exactly.
grow
Exactly.
bilingually.
I mean, you understand, if you speak to someone who is fluent in a language, you're being able to practice your own pronunciation, your own fluidity, and if you speak to someone who is potentially weak in a language, then it's not really helping you.
Exactly.
It's not, there's no scope to get better.
Yeah,
You're just here.
Okay, so one of the most important things about the Bangladesh is what the fear is about their shyness, and of course they are always in fear of making mistakes whenever they are trying to use a second language, let's say English or Arabic or any language in the world. So what do you think about this perfection mentality of ourselves? I mean, the tendency to always speak English fluently and perfectly. Perfection is the fact.
Yeah.
Fluency is not the fact. Is not that a fact that important, but in Bangladesh they are always trying to speak English perfectly. So
Yeah.
do you think actually it's possible to speak a second language perfectly if you are not growing up in a country that is not your native language?
I do.
Because your family helped you, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't have those parents,
Okay.
those types of parents, and we,
You mean for someone who's just interested in learning a language?
but
you
he is
know,
feeling shy,
Right.
he is afraid of making mistakes. So how do you help her?
You
or
make the
him?
mistakes and you keep fixing them. I learned Spanish in college. I'm not the best at it, but I can speak in Spanish. I learned from books, I learned from books
People?
on tape, I learned from people. My Spanish teacher would only speak in Spanish in class.
Oh,
You know, from day one, she only spoke in Spanish in class.
keep
And,
going.
yeah, and she refused to speak in English. Even when we told her we couldn't understand, we'd keep repeating.
She didn't care.
She didn't really care. She was like, well, then learn it.
Oh.
Understand what I'm saying.
Okay, so if we can implement this strategy in Bangladesh, so what we will be needing first is the teacher's proficiency, right? If the
Exactly.
teachers are not proficient,
Exactly.
how can they teach the
Exactly.
students?
And that's the thing. It's kind of a chicken egg cycle. like what comes first? I mean, the teachers have to be students first and learn, and then they have to be teachers. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird cycle. Where do you start?
Exactly.
How do you start? I think the focus needs to be, at this point in time where we are in terms of Bangladesh, the focus needs to come, you know, from higher up, like, you know, from the government. Maybe they can bring in people from outside potentially into the public schools and colleges to teach. Like I'm teaching at Northern University. My dad is the dean of the business school there, and he figured, you know, this might be helpful to the northern students to have someone who speaks English fluently to teach them remedial English, which is what I was doing. So if we can get more expat Bangladeshis, kids who've gone out, to come back and do something like this, and I think they are doing a project like this, Teach for Bangladesh.
Okay.
But you know that needs to be on a much larger scale. And if we can get something like that, then it doesn't matter. Like teachers, students, they can all unanimously study and perfect themselves, and then you know just keep building and help spread it.
So you are saying that we have to have good teachers who are perfectly bilingual, or you know, completely proficient in English, and if we can implement this strategy in a massive scale, extensively all over the country, so that will really help the students, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is your students need to want to. Like, you want to. You know, maybe the next person doesn't. You know, I've had students in my class who have done everything in their power to pick my brain. They wanted to learn everything I could teach them. And then there have been students who rarely come to class. You know? So it really, one thing that America taught me, going to college there, nobody would tell us, you know, come to class. Nobody would tell us do your homework. You know, I didn't have my parents there to sit there and be like, do your homework. You know, do your projects on time, go to class, like
Constantly ordering you
right.
to
I
do
had
the
that
things.
when I was in school. My mom was there. She would wake me up in the morning, send me to school, make me sit down and do my. But in college there was nobody, and my teachers never, you know, they never questioned me. They never said, "Oh, where's your homework? Why didn't you turn it in?" Because America taught me, like the college taught me, that your education is on you. It's your responsibility.
So you have to take that forward.
You have to take that step. If you want the education, if you want the proficiency, you do it on your own.
So if you are doing it yourself, that will help you. Okay. So if we can have good teachers and we can use this all over Bangladesh, and it will really help all the students in Bangladesh, right? Okay. So what about the shyness? What will be your advice to people who are feeling a little bit shy about speaking English, maybe with their friends or parents or teachers or the people all around them? So how can we remove the shyness? What's your suggestion?
You know, shyness in any form is again a very personal thing.
People get shy in their own ways.
Yeah,
different.
You know, every time I do public speaking, I'm very nervous. Just before I go on stage to speak, I get very nervous. I get butterflies.
Really?
Like I feel like throwing up. Like
oh my god!
It's
you also
chaotic.
feel like that?
Yeah, it's the most nerve-wracking thing on the planet. Like all of these people are going to be staring at me. What if I make a mistake? What if I fumble? But once you start speaking and you get into the zone of what you're saying, it just comes naturally. It becomes easy if you know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? But in terms of shyness in speaking a different language that's not your mother tongue, I guess what people need is to stop feeling insecure about it.
What if they make a mistake?
Like that's the thing, when we hear French people or German people or Italian people or Spanish people speak English, for them, English is also a second language.
Right.
Or an Asian person, China, Japan, Korea, anywhere. Their English is just as
Horrible.
Well, not horrible, but like accented, as they don't have perfect pronunciation either. But what is perfect pronunciation? British people speak in a very different manner from American people, but both are speaking English.
And
Australians too. So I think it comes down to just losing our inhibitions in terms of accents. We don't need an American accent when we speak. We can have a Bangladeshi accent as long as what we're saying makes sense. And
so
for what we're saying to make sense, we just need to learn the language.
Okay. So if our words are meaningful to the people we are saying, then it's okay.
Yeah, like it's the football World Cup right now. So I watched Pelé speaking after Brazil's last game, and he was talking about the players and why they were having difficulty like performing, and even though it's at Brazil and stuff, and this guy's accent was completely Brazilian, and half the words that came out of his mouth I couldn't even understand.
Oh my God.
But the bottom line is his message was strong. His message of unity was strong, and I think at the end of the day I didn't sit there listening to this guy speak and think, oh my God, this guy's accent sucks. No, I sat there and listened to his message, and since the message was a good message, I picked that up.
Okay.
And that was all that was important.
So you are interested in what he was trying to, communicate.
Convey.
But
It's not, we have this idea that the rest of the world is sitting there waiting to pick at our faults and laugh at us, but it's not true.
Really?
It's not true. It's really not.
Okay, so up until this point we have spoken in English, but as I told the viewers that you are a bilingual, so you also speak Bangla because that's your mother tongue. So now to convince our viewers that a person can speak both languages proficiently if he or she is really bilingual, we will be speaking now a little bit in Bangla. Do you have any problem with that?
না, কোনো সমস্যা নেই।
ওকে, সো এখন যদি আমি আপনাকে বলতে বলি যে আপনি এতক্ষণ যে কথাগুলো বললেন যে ইংলিশ নিয়ে আমাদের এই ঝামেলা হচ্ছে বা আমরা এটা পারছি না, আমরা করতে পারছি না, বাংলাদেশে এই সমস্যা, শাইনেস, ভালো টিচার নেই, এই ব্যাপারগুলোকে একটু সামারাইজ করে আপনি বাংলায় বলবেন যাতে আমাদের রিডাররা বুঝতে পারে যে হ্যাঁ, একটা বাংলাদেশের মানুষও আসলে কমপ্লিটলি বাইলিঙ্গুয়াল হতে পারে। দ্যাট ডিপেন্ডস অন হাউ ডিড হি লার্ন দ্য ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ। সো ওটা একটু বাংলায় আমাদেরকে সামারাইজ করে বলেন।
আমি যখন স্কুলে ছিলাম আমার টিচাররা কিন্তু আপনারা যেভাবে শিখেছেন এক্স্যাক্টলি ওইভাবে আমাদেরকে শিখিয়েছেন। ওয়ার্ড লিস্ট ছিল যেগুলো মুখস্থ করতে হয়েছিল, কোনো সেট প্যাসেজেস লিখে দিত, ওগুলো আমরা মুখস্থ করতাম, ওইভাবে আমরা শিখতাম। এইভাবে কিন্তু ইংলিশ শেখা যায়। এটা আমি বড় হতে হতে মা বাবার কারণে বেশি ক্ষেত্রে মা বাবার কারণে এটা হয়েছে, কারণ স্কুলে যেগুলো দিত ওগুলো ছাড়া আমার মা বাবা আমাকে বই পড়তে বলতো। বাবা অনেক প্রেশার দিত এটাতে। সে বলতো যে নিউজ দেখো, খবরের কাগজ পড়ো, ইংলিশে পড়ো, ডিকশনারিটা দেখো। এগুলো করতে করতে আমার ওই প্রফিসিয়েন্সিটা চলে আসছে, যেটা স্কুলের ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু হয় না। আর এটা আমার উপরে অনেকটা, মানে এটা আমি চেয়েছিলাম, আমি চেয়েছি যে আমি এটা শিখবো। আমার স্কুলে যখন আমার টিচাররা বললো ও তো ইংলিশ বলতে পারবে না, তখন আমার নিজের মধ্যে একটা
জিদ চলে আসছে যে কেন পারবো,
যে হ্যাঁ আমি তো পারবো, আমি বাংলা পারি, আমি ইংলিশও পারবো। মা যখন আমাকে শেখানো শুরু করলো আমি চেয়েছিলাম যে আমি শিখবো, আমি পারবো। ওই
ব্যক্তিগত আগ্রহটা আসলে ব্যক্তিগত জিদটা
ওটার কারণে কিন্তু পারা, যেটা আমি চেষ্টা করেছি, যখন পারি নাই তখন মা বাবা ছিল সাহায্য করতে।
আচ্ছা, তো আপনি কি ভুল করেন না ইংরেজি বলার সময় আপনার মনে হয়?
অবশ্যই,
রিয়েলি
অনেক অনেক অনেক। আচ্ছা, আমার ফ্রিকোয়েন্টলি ওয়েট করতে হয়, পজ করতে হয়, কোন একটা ওয়ার্ড মনে আসে না, তখন ইয়ে করতে হয়।
তার মানে হচ্ছে আপনার মধ্যে এই ব্যাপারগুলো কাজ করে যে হ্যাঁ, এটা আমার সেকেন্ড ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, যদিও আমি বাইলিঙ্গুয়াল, তারপরেও এটার মধ্যে আমার কিছুটা ঘাটতি থাকবেই, খুব স্বাভাবিক হতেই পারে এবং আমি ভুল করতেই পারি। এবং আরেকটা ব্যাপার হচ্ছে আমরা যেটা বলি সেটা হচ্ছে আমাদের যে মাদার টাং বাংলা, সেটাও কিন্তু আমরা আসলে অনেক শিক্ষিত লোকও
সঠিকভাবে বলি না, সো সেটাতে যদি আমরা লজ্জা ফিল না করি, কেন আমরা ইংলিশে লজ্জাটা ফিল করবো, রাইট?
আমার মা এটা কিন্তু মানে অহরহ আমাকে পয়েন্ট আউট করে যে আমি আমার ফ্রেন্ডদের সাথে যখন কথা বলি তখন আমরা বলি ও খাইছো গেছো বসো,
হ্যাঁ